Canadian. Amy.
Over here.
Harry.
They'll fill up in a minute.
Okay, we've got everybody we're going to get here. Let's call this meeting to order. And the first piece of business is the approval of the agenda. Late items, folks? Just the one?
There's just one late item. We're on item 6.2 of the agenda.
Okay.
A letter from Bill Rager.
Thank you very much. And somebody want to move to approve the agenda?
No, I have something you want to add.
Oh, you want to add? Okay.
I was wondering if you were going to say anything about the school strike for climate.
No.
Okay, then I want to add climate emergency.
Where would you like to put that?
New business,
Okay.
10.7 or something? What do you want?
Yeah, 10.7 is good, yeah. It was all on the paper, you didn't read the paper.
I did.
All right, so we have one addition.
For municipal.
Anybody else? Addition? No. Okay. So let's try again. Approval of the agenda. So Alan second. And Rob as amended. All in favor? Thank you. Public comments? Oh. Somebody want to talk to us?
None this evening.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda. Anybody have anything you want to pull off of that? Sure. Okay. Then I will move that the council approve the items as outlined in the March 25th, 2019 consent agenda. Second to Michael, all in favor? Thank you. So moved. And then we're right down to delegations. Are you ready, Jackie?
You betcha.
All right.
I'm missing my chair, but I'm sure.
Do you want to wait?
Do you have something else you want to do? And
well-
I'm sure you'll be here in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
We should wait.
we are quite early here. Why don't you just relax and we carry on and do so?
6.1?
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the bylaws and 6.1, Daniel.
Thank you. I'm not quite as interesting, but I'm here to talk about our development application fees, and in particular planning and development bylaw. So we have a planning and development bylaw that's adopted in 2000, and we're looking at updating the bylaw and moving out to the new bylaw. So we have a guiding policy that guides our fees and charges, and so it talks about so fees and charges will be reviewed on a regular basis, which we haven't been doing. It'll also include an analysis of costs as well as what is charged by other municipalities. And the goal for fees and charges is that for this 8.1 fees for development related functions, i.e. building and other related inspections, development approval subdivision will be set at a level to recover full costs. So what we did when looking at our current bylaw, so it's bylaw number 11, so it's the 11th bylaw we adopted in municipality. It's been unamended since then. And if you look through the bylaw, you'll probably agree with me, it's quite lengthy, it can be hard to follow. It sets out 3 different categories for different applications. So it says you evaluate a rezoning or a variance permit is a basic, a regular, or a complex application and determine fees based on that. So to our knowledge, the municipality has only ever used the regular category and never used the basic or the complex things. So we're seeking to create a new fee bylaw that reflects the increased costs since 2000, but also is simple and more manageable. So one of the steps we did is we looked at comparable communities. So we did some review of islands, particularly Islands Trust, Sunshine Coast, so not looking at things in the Lower Mainland, but what we try to think of as what are comparable communities. So you'll see some of the fees, like our rezoning and OCP fees, seem sort of in the same range, whereas most significant is like our development permit costs are quite a bit lower than other municipalities. We then did we tried to look at what are the costs of processing applications, in particular staff costs, so planning staff costs and hard costs, estimates for various application types. So Raj would remind me, because we didn't do a full cost analysis, so we didn't look at indirect costs such as rent, utilities, administration, support time, anything like that, but it was just the planning staff time for it. The estimates, I feel like, even as I was doing them and writing the report, are more reliable for development permits. They're what we do most of, they're most sort of straightforward and have the least amount of sort of variance in them, whereas rezonings can vary wildly in terms of how many committees it goes through, how many council reports, the complexity. So it became apparent when we did that seeking full recovery costs would result in quite a large fee increase. So instead, what we tried to look at is what's an increase to capture more of the costs associated with it, but that would be comparable to surrounding communities. So, for example, the most glaring one that we were looking to update is the development permit application fee. So currently we charge $175 for an application fee, and it costs us $150 to register the permit on title. So almost all the costs is taken up just with that cost of registering the permit. So what we have is a proposed fee structure that would increase the costs or increase the fee to bring it closer in line to recovering costs, but not that full cost recovery. But sort of trying to reflect the fact that costs have increased over the last sort of 20 years, but we don't want to make that whole jump in one go. The next thing I did that's not in your report, but I sort of looked at today how much more revenue would have meant in 2018. So under the applications we got in 2018, it would have meant just over $7,000 in additional fees that we would have charged. And that's all I have. So we have before you a draft bylaw number 484, and we're looking for a first reading of that bylaw.
Any discussion? So what about, like, obviously we should have been doing it sort of all the way along. And I think it was somewhere in here that said we're going to look at it again when?
So when I went to the Finance Advisory Committee, which I should have put on there, they recommended go forward, and they had discussion about the need for even an annual or biannual checkup to make sure that we don't let it go 19 years again. But so our policy does say to do it annually, to review all things annually. So we expect going forward, maybe not be annually, but at least it would be. If we update it in 2019, we're not looking at 2020 or 2021, we should be.
Should be cost. Anybody else? So,
Just, I'd be prepared to move the motion. I'm in support of this in terms of cost recovery, and I think it makes sense, especially seeing that it hasn't been reviewed in so long. So
all right.
you want me to move it?
Yes, please.
That bylaw number 484, 2018, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Development Applications Fees Bylaw 484, 2019? One of those is wrong, right? Which one is it, 2018 or 2019?
Sorry, 2019.
Okay. That bylaw number 484, 2019, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Development Application Fee Bylaw 484, 2019, you read it first time.
Good, Michael? Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. All right, so let's go back to our delegation.
Stop that. Very rude. We do have a PowerPoint presentation for you, but I think, first of all, thank you so much for having us this evening. I think probably most of you know who I am. And I think most of you probably know who Rob is. Gloor is the chair and president of the Bowen Island Arts Council. And he's here with me to begin the presentation tonight. And I will let you take it over.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Mayor and Council. And thanks for the opportunity to present to you today. Our presentation addresses the requirements of our core community organization funding agreement, which was signed in August of last year. It's our pleasure to provide an overview of the cultural services and programs we've been delivering to the community for the past year. Our agreement with you outlines it's our role to implement specific aspects of the Bowen Island Cultural Master Plan, work toward developing public cultural spaces, offering cultural services and programming, collaborate with recreation staff to deliver recreational cultural services and other programming, and act as an advisory body to council.
I'm just going to actually hand out a little cheat sheet for all of you. These are the recommendations from the Cultural Master Plan, so they're probably still here. And just so that you can see, as Rob is referencing them, everything is just, yeah, this is directly from the Cultural Master Plan. Apologies for these slides.
that's all right.
Right.
Don't worry.
I'm trying to put them all into one page.
We're happy to report we're continuing to meet and exceed the expectations of the plan through our team, largely consisting of volunteers managed by 1 full-time and 2 part-time staff. As a nonprofit and a registered charity, the Arts Council, which has adopted new branding under the name The Heart, is governed by a volunteer board of directors which set the strategic plan and priorities for the organization. As you know, 2018 was a year of transition for us as we moved into the Cove Commons, a monumental achievement we shared with the Bowen Island Public Library and the community as a whole. Adjusting to our new home and implementing new processes and systems was a significant focus for the year, while still meeting our ongoing operational goals and fulfilling our agreement with the municipality. In terms of our role in implementing Bylaw 446, known as the Cultural Master Plan, we focused on the top strategic priorities. These include priorities for spaces, establishing and operating a dedicated cultural space in Snug, Cove with the opening of the Cove Commons, and secondly, building a multi-purpose community hall and performing arts space, which has been an objective of this organization since its founding over 30 years ago. Thanks to the leadership of and partnership with the municipality, that is close to being realized in the not-too-distant future. In 2018, we signed a joint project agreement and fundraising memorandum of understanding with you, and as you know, our executive director, Jacqueline, has dedicated a portion of her hours toward the project as supported by the municipality. Her expertise alongside Shauna Jennings and other members of the Community Centre Select Steering Committee will help to ensure the priorities met. Priority 2 is to reliably fund arts and culture on Bowen. Again, we applaud you for taking the first step with the core funding agreement, recognizing the Arts Council as an effective long-term partner in delivering cultural services on behalf of the municipality. Priority 3, to support public art and land art. We were very happy to take the lead in drafting a public art program and policy for the municipality, working with municipal staff and building terms of reference for our public art advisory committee. We look forward to working with the municipality and convening that committee and undertaking projects that will enhance and reflect our artistic community. In addition to these top 3 priorities, a number of other strategic goals and recommendations from the Cultural Master Plan were embedded in our programming. For example, action on priority 15, support awareness on First Nations culture, is evidenced through our continuing program, Knowing Our Place, a Truth and Reconciliation initiative, which we deliver in collaboration with the Bowen Island Public Library and Pauline LaBelle. A highlight last year was the first ever on Bowen celebration of National Indigenous Peoples Day, which also included the municipality as a partner. We've made some headway with priority 16.1, establishing Leven as a historical cultural site, and look forward to working with the Heritage Commission in achieving that goal. Priority 4, help artists make a better living, is a key directive in planning our gallery programming, performing arts series, and other activities we undertake throughout the year. A new initiative, Studio Tours, was launched in 2018 with great success and will become an annual event. Our relationship with the Community Recreation Department is solid as we co-present an array of workshops and classes, collaborating on special events such as Canada Day. We work closely with the municipality to ensure that the community is well served in terms of demand for learning opportunities. And we're active on numerous council-appointed committees with representatives on the Community Economic Development Committee, the Heritage Commission, the Public Art Advisory Committee, and of course, Community Centre Committee. Though not part of our agreement with the municipality, we also network with a wide array of other community groups, both on and off island, including the Literacy Task Group, Sea to Sky Council Alliance, the BC Alliance for Arts and Culture, Arts BC, and other affiliations. We feel we're strongest when we work with others and will continue to collaborate with groups including local schools, Bowen Heritage, Museum and Archives, Bowen Island Library, Caring Circle, the Bowen Youth Center, and other stakeholders. So now I'll pass over to Jacqueline for the PowerPoint highlighting this past year's achievements.
So enough talking, we think it'd be time to see some images.
Just a quick question, can you remind me what the hearth, what is that again?
Yes, so we have gone through branding process, and we do reference it in this little presentation.
Okay.
And of course, we're happy to take any questions perhaps after it.
It's okay, just mysteriously
Answer some of your
caught my
questions and then-
attention, yes.
Ah, great, that's great. All right, roll it. Yeah. Moving and hearts over. It should be.
Oh, good. Suspense.
This gives a little bit of background and explanation as to how we got to where we are with our
Storytelling.
It's storytelling, yes. That helped us out. You sure have raised the bar for our PowerPoint
Yeah, I'll say.
I want jazz with all the cars.
Yeah, I do. And that's it.
Wow, well done.
I apologize for the legibility of some of that writing. It looks a bit different on my screen, and certainly my program is a math program, so a little changes in there. But at any rate, we just wanted to give you an overview of those programs, many of course which Rob already mentioned. In our responsibility to you as far as reporting for our funding, we are expected to present an annual report, and we do have a printed one here for you. Also, would like a copy, or and this includes our actually financial statements as well. You saw the snapshot there, but our full financial statements are in this document as well. And I just want to state that we've been reporting, giving you a report on 2018, but our fiscal year end is we run from July 1st to June of July 1st to the end of June, and so our fiscal year and financial statements reflect that year, and so they're from 2017 to 2018. So of course, we're very happy to take any questions you might have. Yes.
Have you found an increase in visitors with the new location?
Have we ever? Yeah, I mean, we anticipated there would be an increase, of course. I was very impressed with the numbers when I was checking in the summertime. So from June to September in 2017, I think we had up at Artisan Square around 4,200 people come in the doors. We had almost 9,000 during the same period. And overall, it's definitely doubled. And there's lots of people coming in our doors. Everybody from local people who are possibly coming down just to see the artwork, or going over to the library, or running an errand somewhere else. And then, of course, terrace of people waiting for the ferry will wander by. We have increased our hours, which again was our plan going forward. So we are open 6 days a week now. And Councillor Morse, that's something we've been working for a long ways. In fact, I remember when Councillor David Rynch was bringing that up, why we weren't open more often. And partially that's always has been because we've been relying on volunteers always as our hosts for our gallery. And of course we had to increase our volunteer program as well with the Cove and have done so quite successfully.
So which day is the closed day?
We're closed on Tuesdays. Generally the day that we do show takedown and mounting new shows coming.
That was my question.
Yeah, Jacqueline, you sort of addressed this in your PowerPoint. The relationship between the library, the Arts Council, and community recreation. Any area, is that working very smoothly? Is there anything that maybe we as a municipality can do to bolster that, or any recommendations on how that relationship goes?
Yeah, well, if I've learned anything in the years that I've been involved with the Arts Council, or depending on Bowen as a whole, is collaboration is key. And it makes sense on so many levels, and you achieve so much more, and there's so much more strength in everything we do. So, we have great partnerships, and we are working to deepen those relationships. As far as community recreation is concerned, we have worked with community rec now for many, many years, over a decade. Before Sean was here, with Christine, and before Christine, who's there?
Pauline.
Pauline, thank you. Pauline, of course. And we have a great relationship with them, and as I said, we presented today, we do a lot of collaborations. We come together. In fact, there's a number of service providers, including the Community School Association, and we will come together and talk about what the needs of the community are, what we've heard on the street in terms of demands for programming, what age groups need to be, their needs to be addressed. And so we work together absolutely on that level, and so it works very well. Really, really pleased with the way things are going in terms of how our programmers work with community grant programmers. The library is a little different, and although we do collaborate with them, we are doing a literacy program with them. We are doing the Knowing Our Place program, as was mentioned, and other things come up, special events. So now that we have that shared space, it's easy to just walk over and talk about ideas and things that we might collaborate on. So we do, although of course we both have very specific budgets and to work with, as well as limited resources. So we try to collaborate or support each other where we can, and continue to talk about ideas and potential programs.
Maureen?
There's been quite a lot of work done by BYLAWS and presentations at the Heritage Commission on the Leven site. And I know that Dave Pollard was working hard on developing an application. Could you give the rest of council a little bit of an update on where the Leven project is at?
Sure. So I'm not sure you know, but our council's been a steward of Leven for a very, very long time. When Kathy Dunster was here, and she was part of Friends of Leven, at some point she came to us. She was also working with the Island Trust, I believe, at that time. And so we have a special place in our hearts for Leven, and have certainly accumulated a lot of information and acquired a lot of knowledge around who spent time there. And you should probably know it was a who's who of Canadiana in terms of artists and painters and musicians throughout the 40s, 50s, and 60s largely. Of course, well documented by our museum. So we have in the past done tours down to the site, even though it's a little tricky to get down there, or even trickier to get back up. But and in the past we would do that, go down and do poetry readings and host small activities. And so working with Heritage, we are trying to move towards having it designated as a National Historic Site. And as Maureen mentioned, Dave Pollard has taken the lead on this, and we checked out all the requirements, and so he has written a draft, which I believe, I'm not sure I have the process correct, I believe it has to go to the province first, because of course it is a Crown property. And then once the province is happy with it, we could send it to the federal government, and that would be done in partnership and support of the Heritage Commission.
You mean the Heritage Commission on Bowen?
Yes, Municipality.
Rob?
Just the landscaping in the back of the commons, is there any update on what's happening there?
Yes, so you should be hearing from myself and Tina soon to come to council to talk about a landscape plan for the area. We knew it was beyond our fundraising capacity, though we were focusing on the capital for the building. But we do have a plan. It's been scaled down a couple of times now. We have a little bit of money designated for landscaping, but not a lot. And it's a big area, it's a big property, and of course it's all municipal property. And so our intention is to come to you with a plan and explain where we're at in terms of budget and what we're able to do. We also understand and appreciate that we need to do this work in conjunction with the work that's being done on Cardini Road, and we've been informed from Public Works and what's going on in the timeline on that, so that we could again coordinate it and work together to ensure that something gets done this year down there.
Thank you for that.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much, Sir Sue.
Just, Islands Trust has even earlier, long time ago, between Ross Carter and Kathy Dunster and 2014 or so, I've been working with them a little bit from the Conservancy side. And anyway, they may be able to help. If they've got files or if there's anything they can do, please let me know.
Thank you.
Because they have a heritage role as well.
Well, thank you. That was a very thorough presentation, very pleasant.
Thank you.
Good.
missed about.
Very autistic
We'll
mix,
ask
if
if
you
that's
will.
on.
Keep up the good work. So we're gonna move on to 6.2, which, Raj? Yours?
I don't know, I've got a need to follow on that PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, I know. It's a hard act to follow.
So we all Jackie to teach us PowerPoint.
You got music, though, right?
We got jazz.
Maybe this with dollars attack. So we have before you the 5-year financial plan bylaw from 2019 to 2023. Essentially, what the plan is proposing is a property tax increase of 6.7% for 2019. 5.2% of that will be used to fund municipal operations, and 1.5% for the increase for capital funding for our asset reserves, essentially. I've basically gone through a public consultation process where we held 2 public open houses. The financial plan has been vetted through the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee had recommended that council give it first 3 readings. Other than that, I've got basically at the 2 strategic sessions, I had I had a discussion on the operating budget and the pressures on the operating budget at one of the strategic sessions, and I talked about capital and went over the proposed reserve schedules at one of the strategic sessions as well. So what I've got here is a very, very high level PowerPoint presentation of basically what's included in our budget and overall our generally our municipal expenditures and whatnot. So I'll go through this and then I'll answer any questions you may have. And at the end of the presentation, go through next steps in terms of tax rate bylaw. So in terms of our municipal budget, 59% of the tax bill that homeowners see represents their municipal taxes. The other 41% of people's property tax bill is for taxes that we collect on behalf of other taxing authorities, including provincial school taxes, BC assessment, Adams Trust, TransLink, and the police tax. They're being the bigger ones. It's just to give you a little bit of a flavor in terms of what's on people's property tax bills. In terms of our expenditures, almost all of our operating activities are run through the general fund, and this chart here has just been devised to give you an idea of where the municipal expenditures and what municipal services are provided. So by and large, our largest expenditure is general government. Next to that, we spend quite a bit on waste and recycling, which is collected through a garbage parcel tax and not through taxation revenue. And again, we have basically roads and infrastructure is one of the larger pieces of the pie here as well. I won't go through all of them. This was also included in the budget package that I had distributed to you as well. And in terms of our, so I had said that there's going to be a 6.7% property tax rate impact this year in order to balance the budget. So how does that impact the average household owner? Or actually, that's the next slide. I've jumped ahead of myself. Basically, this is we're planning to collect about $338,000 more in property taxes this year. Essentially, $212,400 will go towards operating costs. $76,000 will go towards the debt servicing costs for the community lands. We're collecting an additional $75,000 this year for asset renewal and replacement. The employer health tax will have an ongoing impact of $25,000, and those expenses are offset by non-market change, which is essentially new taxation that's come onto the roll through new construction, and that's about $50,400. So after taking into consideration the not-market change, we need a total amount of $338,000 to balance the budget. So, and in terms of the waste and recycling parcel tax, That will go up by $126 per household. It's allocated on a flat basis to all households across the municipality. And we've had numerous discussions about the drivers of that. Essentially, it's the transportation costs for transporting green waste off the island and the expansion into the recycling program and just larger volumes of green waste and recycling coming in that are driving the increase in costs. In terms of the average resident on Bowen Island, I mean, essentially, what does all of this mean to the average resident of Bowen Island? So the average home on Bowen Island is assessed at $1,144,000, and in 2018, their municipal property taxes were $2,553. So essentially, the non-market change would give them a little bit of a break in their taxes of about $22 for the average household. However, the waste and recycling parcel tax will go up by $126. In terms of our operating costs, which are essentially increases in salaries, which are driven by the 2.1% CPI index for last year, and other contractual policy increases, costs like insurance or IT, maintenance costs, etc. Will have an impact of $95 per household. Our renewal and replacement policy, which adds $75,000 to our asset and renewal replacement reserves, will essentially cost $34, and the land debt servicing costs for the community lands will cost each homeowner $34. Well, each homeowner of an average assessed home. So total taxes will go up by, including the waste and recycling, by $278 for a house that's assessed at $1,144,000. Now, my apologies, this is the average household. If you take a look at the draft budget book, it's got different household assessed values, so somebody can at a glimpse get an idea if their home was assessed at closer to $3 million, what the impact on their household would be, or if their house was assessed at about $800,000, what the impact on their household would be. I meant to incorporate that slide into the PowerPoint, and I forgot. So, but it is in your budget book. In terms, I'm just kind of going over once again what's driving the operating expenditures this year. So it's a CPI policy-based compensation adjustments for staff and council, contractual increases, as I had mentioned, for things like IT costs, insurance of our infrastructure, debt servicing costs for the community lands, the asset renewal and replacement policy, and the changes in the solid waste and recycling market. And in terms of the capital program, essentially staff had put together requests for capital for the 2019 through to 2023 based on when assets needed to be replaced, either because they were nearing end of life or were not efficient, or there were new requests for new assets as well. So, and I've basically got a 5-year capital plan over here. So essentially 2019, our total capital program will be $7,850,000, $13 million in 2020, $7.7 million in 2021. In those years, again, our capital program is driven by 3 major projects: the water treatment plant, the assumption that we will be building a community center for $14.5 million. We'll be building a fire hall for about $2.7 million. Those are the 3 major projects that are included in there. In 2019, you'll notice that the transportation infrastructure number is quite high. We have 3 culverts that are at risk of failure in the event of another bad weather storm. Those could be washed out and cutting off access to parts of the island. And I'll go through what's in the 2019 plan in the next few slides. But generally speaking, we taper down to our regular amount of capital spending of about $1 million, or just under $1 million in 2022, 2023. So in terms of our facilities program, I anticipate we'll spend about $500,000 on the fire hall and emergency management facility in 2019, the balance of it being spent in 2021. Community center pre-design work, we anticipate on spending $418,000 in 2019. In again, Mount Gardner and Snug Cove dock repairs are required. Workyard improvements at Mount Gardner. We originally, staff had requested $60,000 for improvements at Salal. We've taken that out of the budget and deferred it into 2019. So
That's the workyard improvement?
yeah, we were looking at securing the workyard.
Yeah, no, it's fine, I'm
Defense-
making
yeah.
sure I understood the word Salal.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
Was that the word? Yeah. And essentially, anything that has a 2018 beside it is a carry forward of previously approved budget. So the budget was approved in 2018, the works just weren't completed, so they'll be completed in 2019. So we just carry that budget forward. In terms of transportation programs, you see again, I've listed the transportation programs here that we anticipate on completing or working on in 2019. The Cardina Road roundabout has 225 in grant funding. So significant grant funding there. And again, the multi-use path has about 293 of anticipated grant funding. So that's mostly funded through grants through TransLink. Culvert replacements, as you can see, 214 plus 350. All of those will be done during the fisheries window. I believe that's in August, is it, Bob?
August 15th.
Okay, it's the middle of August. And then I've just bundled up a whole bunch of programs, smaller projects, the trail creation to the bike park, pedestrian network, spirit trail wayfinding and cycling network. And we also will be completing phase 1 of the multi-use path, which was approved in 2018, and some fencing is required around Seymour Bay Park, primarily for pedestrian safety. I understand there's a cliff fall off there, and I think there was a little bit of a discussion on this at the council meeting as well. I mean, sorry, at the strategic planning session when we were talking about capital.
Can you remind me what the 225 grant is? Is that TransLink funding?
Cardina. I believe it's primarily through TransLink. I can double check the funding source on that.
Thank you.
Can I thought at the strategic session that we weren't gonna do, anyway, I don't think there was support for that Seymour Bay Park fence for pedestrian safety, and I've been through my island plan, and I didn't have that, I didn't see it anywhere. So I'm worried about that, because Seymour Bay is getting fewer and fewer trees and more other things. I'm not sure about that one.
Okay. What? Oh.
What it is it's just gonna be like a split rail fence along, you know where the rock wall is? People can walk and then they sort of fall off.
Just
So-
before the bridge?
From the bridge to where the culvert is, the big culvert,
Yeah.
along that, there's just a rock wall, so it's grassy now and then it just sort of ends.
When was the rock wall put in?
Oh, many years ago. Remember they tried to put a rose bush in there to stop them? There is no rose bushes anymore, so we want to put like a little split rail fence this high, just so everybody can see that they don't go off the edge.
Okay, because this is not something that came through the Parks, Trails and Greenways Committee or anything like that. I think the Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee has made recommendations about restoring the nature to the park more than protecting people from structures built by well, I don't even know who built those structures or how they were approved in a park, so I'm,
Oh, we still have
I've
to.
got a question
How
about
far
that.
down are they, Will?
Oh, anywhere from 15 feet to 10
Oh,
feet.
geez.
I would suggest when
Certainly
this is
a
ready
safety
to go, we bring it forward for council's consideration.
What I can do is keep it in the financial
Yeah.
plan, but
Yeah.
not approve the project and
Yeah.
bring it forward to
I think
council.
that's
Further
good.
information before we continue on with it, so I'll flag it as
because we have
that.
cliffs in all our parks.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll flag that one.
So on the multi-use
sorry.
path, did we get the
200 net?
funding already,
There's
or
a
is
grant
that
there.
net of the, no,
Shows
the
grant.
phase one,
Oh, yeah.
which I thought was around the curve, is that the curve?
I thought we had funding for that.
And is it net, is that a net number then?
This would be the amount of the carry forward.
Yeah, they're two different.
So it's actually just the amount that's remaining to be done on the multi-use
last year.
path.
Where,
So it was approved in
I
2018.
guess I'm confused then as to what path we're talking about.
This is like that.
This is that cut through.
Around Charlie's Lane corner? Well, there's nothing been built there. I drive
I-
by it every
That's
day.
design, I think.
I've actually, I can't remember the detailed description on this, Allison, but you know the package I had given out to you at the strategic planning session? It had a detailed description for the project itself. I can get back to you with that, or if you give me a couple of minutes, I can look it up for you right now.
I'll look it up, I've got it here. It just didn't seem like enough for all the work at Charlie's Lane corner, which is what I thought it was.
You're talking about the
335?
335?
Yeah, there's 335,000 or
So I think it's just broken up. You see multi-use path, 335, and then multi-use path phase one,
Which is
which was a carry forward.
carry forward.
Yeah,
okay, so that's just the
This-
design. work.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Thanks, Kathy. So in terms of our heavy-duty equipment and vehicles, again, I've pushed the 550,000 engine 31 replacement off until later in the year. I believe what we should do is look at because it's such a large expenditure, I believe we should have the new fire chief make this their priority and report back with options available to us in terms of how the community would be impacted if we didn't replace it, what our alternatives are. Essentially, I believe it requires a report to council before proceeding with it. So I would defer putting it out in the plan, and then if it is absolutely required, we can amend the financial plan to include it. But just given the drain it would have on our reserves currently, I believe it's wise to delay it for now. So I still do have the replacement of the fire truck engine number 32, which is near end of life, and the plow salt truck was approved last year. I believe it's still in Langley being outfitted, but we should receive it anytime.
I hope so. It'll be new for next year. It was
Ready
already
for
in July
spring.
last year.
And then in terms of equipment side of things, we've got, we've talked about the skid steer, broom, bucket, and shoulder attachments. There are 3 different attachments which will improve well, 2 of them absolutely need to be replaced. I believe the broom and the bucket, and the shoulder attachment actually improves our efficiency, allows us to schedule work accordingly and not rely on the contractor schedules, and probably has a payback of about 2 to 3 years if I'm not mistaken. In terms of savings, again, last year we didn't do any replacement of firefighter gear, so we have some hoses, some turnout gear for firefighters, and SCBA replacement. SCBA is, I think, their breathing apparatus. Is that correct, Ian? Yeah. And again, we have an independent contractor that comes in and inspects our gear and evaluates it in terms of its need for replacement as well, right?
Yeah, it's
So-
done yearly.
Okay. And essentially, grass ride-on mower is again, just demands on staff time from all of the newer parks and projects we've been taking on, so it'd be more efficient to,
Sorry, Raj, ITS, what's that?
oh, information technology
Sorry,
services.
okay,
Renewed.
thanks.
So it's a replacement of workstations and
Okay.
ITS equipment. And then there's basically library, annex furnishings, equipment and IT, 2100, and the library collection refresh. And the electrical charging vehicle stations, these would be the costs of actually installing them. We received those through grant funds in 2018. So they are stored away somewhere safe until
Is that
they
two?
get 2 of them, I believe. And again, in leftover camera, Snug Cove dock, just going in, I believe the camera's been purchased through cable. Shaw had done some work, and the camera should be going in if it's not, right?
Is this the Warfinger?
Yeah, the Warfinger, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And then basically just a quick high-level description of our utilities capital. Most of it is in the Cove Bay treatment plant, and the other water areas is primarily replacement of pumps and sand filters. Anticipated replacement. If we don't need to replace them, the money goes back into the reserve and gets drawn out in the subsequent year. So it's not necessarily going to be spent, but at least we'll have the provision in case we do need to replace them.
Can I just ask, sorry, go after you. Go ahead.
My question was, which sewer lift station?
The one by the boardwalk.
Oh, right, thank you, I remember you talked about that.
And for the Cove Bay treatment plant, you've got 3.6 there. How is the total, what's the total spread? So much this year, this, and then the rest the following year? Is that how it's looking right now?
That's how I've generally got it, and I think it's a total of 5.9 million.
That's what, okay, I'm looking to
In-
6.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
no, 6, sorry, it was, what is it, 6.8? I think it's 6.8 million.
6. Yeah,
okay, so, Raj, what I'm trying to say is this is the extent of
This-
the billing you expect in this
In
current year.
2019,
Okay,
yes.
got it. And then the rest fall. Have we paid off any of this, let's say it's whatever it is, 6, 8, have we charged any to this year?
Very little.
Very little. Okay, so the bulk of it falls in over the
Will
next 2
fall
years.
in the next couple of years,
Got it.
exactly.
Thank you.
And just again, in terms of the outer, it's a 5-year financial plan, so just wanted to point out that I do have 6.7 million in long-term debt and servicing costs included in the plan, 4 million for the community center, 2.7 for the fire hall, and 0.8, or we may need, I'm gonna double check the exact number, but we'll temporarily need to fund part of the Cove Bay treatment plant. And it shouldn't cost Cove Bay water users a lot more to do that, because we have the Queen Charlotte Heights parcel tax, which come 2019 is the last year of that tax, and the cost of servicing about $800,000 in debt is pretty close to what the parcel tax is, so the parcel tax will disappear, and a charge for debt servicing will.
Except the only people paying that parcel tax are the people that live in Queen
In
Charlotte.
Queen Charlotte Heights, so it'll be, yeah,
Which is maybe 100 of the
Okay.
600.
okay.
How about the 2 million for the community lands?
Pardon?
That's in.
That's in 2000, that's in this year?
Oh,
In 2000 and, sorry, it's already debt that's been
Yeah,
taken
it's
out,
okay.
my apologies, and it's included in 2019. And the out-of-year plant also has the operating impacts of the new community center included in it, which were vetted through the finance committee.
Thank you.
And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Prior to that, just kind of mention that this, so if the financial plan is approved for first 3 readings by council this evening, next steps will be for me to bring forward a tax rate bylaw which will reflect the taxation revenue that is required to, in accordance with the financial plan for 2019. We'll bring that to the next council meeting.
All right. So,
I didn't see any mention of additional staff anywhere here, and maybe, can you explain?
Okay. We don't have any tax-funded FTEs provided in 2019.
Okay.
So we do have a 0.5 of an FTE, which is funded through business license revenue.
Right,
And we created another 0.3, so our FTEs went up by about 0.8, but we did a reorganization within and created actually more FTEs with existing bodies.
gotcha.
So by reallocating.
Thank you, so we're not really adding any staff except the business license one?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because somebody was asking me. Okay, and that one, never mind. That's fine.
okay, Rob?
Just on the staffing question, Raj, I know Public Works was looking for an extra staff person. Is that planned in the following year, or do we have any plans to up staffing in Public Works?
They'll bring, if for this year, we didn't entertain any increases in staffing levels, simply we just couldn't afford it. They will certainly be welcome to bring forward their requests for last year. I encourage all staff to bring forward all of the requests they have to be able to provide the service levels that are requested by the community. Again, the public services request for staffing was in response to the additional parks and that we've taken on and additional services that are requested by the community.
We will, I was talking to Bob today, and Raj, I haven't had a chance to talk to you. We'll be bringing forward a report to council probably within the next 2 months about our parks allocation. We had, I think it was 1.6 FTE in parks 2 years ago. Right now we're down to 1 FTE because the other 0.6 is focused on environment. So there is a real struggle right now with, we can't even maintain our parks and our trails. So Bob and Raj and Shell and I are going to be bringing forward a report saying, here's the service level you can expect with the 1 FTE. And if we want to increase service levels or maintenance, it would be an increase. They're really struggling right now, our Public Works Department.
In the financial plan on page 6, the briefing book, it says Parks and Environment has 3.8 FTEs, if I'm reading this correctly.
We have 1 FTE in parks right now.
Out in the, actually in the operating yard, right? Is that what we were talking operations, and I think that
So I think
FTE
that
that
includes
Allison has, yeah.
the environment.
Yeah, it has the environment
Yeah.
included in it,
Just
so.
the parks and environment.
It does, it says Parks and Environment,
Okay,
3.8.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So for
effectively
example,
the parks
Bonnie would be,
one.
Bonnie would be included in that even though she's not here
Mhm.
right now, because she is an
And we
FTE.
didn't replace
We
it.
didn't replace one, okay.
I just was wondering, 2 questions. One about, what was the attendance at the budget consultation sessions that you held?
I
Did
had
I
one,
miss it?
I had one person attend one, and there was a 0 attendance at the other.
Okay.
I have included
Maybe that's why I
correspondence
missed
that I received.
Yes, I got the
yeah,
comments.
okay.
Thank you. Somehow I
Comments
missed
from
the
the public.
attendance. Okay, thank you. And 1, 0. And then on page, well, the page where it talks about the different classifications of taxes,
Mhm.
about the farm tax, I know people can get provincial farm tax status. Is that the same as what I'm seeing here? Or does the municipality somehow also reduce the tax?
The municipality has no say in how properties are classified. That's the BC Assessment Authority.
Right. So this is all
Did I
right through
answer?
that. Thank you, that's my question.
But could we send it by the mill rate?
Pardon?
What farms are classified as?
Yeah, so council has established a mill rate ratio, which is 0.5
Yeah,
the residential, so that's what.
Yeah, my question was just who decided which was a farm, and that through the BC assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And then we decided the mill rate.
Correct.
It's not an easy process. Allison?
I'm looking at the financial plan itself, and I guess there's transfers from reserves in the revenue line, so under statutory reserves, which I'm assuming are the ones we've established by bylaw,
Mhm.
and then from non-statutory operating reserves, which I'm assuming is coming out of surplus, accumulated surplus. It's 1.4 million, and our unappropriated surplus as per our financial statements was only 2.1 million at the end of last year, and 1.8 in the water, so I guess, what, is most of that 1.4 the water, or is it a lot of, yeah, I'm just.
I'll tell you in just a
Yeah.
quick sec.
This is where we need the jazz music.
Yeah, exactly. So transfers from surplus reserves of 1,418. The lion's share of that is transfer from surplus. So, essentially so the lion's share of that is a 936,000 that's coming from the, we call it from the reserve surplus of general government, which is for the funding of, it would be the transportation reserve. And I believe that's a statutory reserve. I'll have to double check the split between the statutory and the non-statutory reserve, but I've got a list of the reserves that make up that 1,418,000, Allison.
That would be nice.
And why don't I go over that offline, because I think it's probably beyond the scope of discussion in this room.
I'm just worried about depleting our unappropriated surplus down to virtually nothing.
Yeah, the only thing that's funded out of our surplus, as we call it, is the one-time funding for the, what was it, the employer health tax.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there was $25,000 that was a one-time hit, and that's the only item that I funded out of our appropriated surplus. The rest of this is out of operating reserves and statutory reserves.
Well, I was just looking at the financial statements, and it's just got unappropriated surplus, water utilities, surplus sewer utilities, service and statutory reserve funds.
I'd be happy to go over the listing of the different reserves that the funding is coming from with you offline.
All right. Ross, just for my edification, I think there was $20,000 there for the bike barn. And there was a big grant in there also. I don't know how much we got in the grant. Is that included?
The bike barn is, the bike barn, we had $18,000 in kind contributions.
Wow.
And we had 18,000 in grant funding, so there is no municipal funds going towards the bike barn.
It shows 20,000, but that's just in and out, eh?
That was the carry forward
Yeah.
portion, I believe, yeah, I think, that was the 20,000 that was shown in
The previous
carry
year.
forward, yeah. I can go back to that slide.
So where does that
Just go
still
back to
go
that, but yeah, no, the bike barn has 18,000 of,
But that was all 2018 numbers, mostly.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's 36,000 in 2018 for the bike barn, I believe, and it should be under facilities here.
Bike barn, yeah, 20,800.
So 20,800 is the remaining amount,
Yeah.
Gary, so it's a total $36,000 project.
Is that mostly the solar panels that are low?
There is no smoke, right?
Well, I thought that's what was gonna go up there. Because it looks more.
Isn't that what the 20,000, yeah, what would the 20,000?
The 20,800, I did follow up with Greg. I can't remember what the scope of the work is, other than he's basically going to use the entire 20,800 for work that needs to be done. I'd have to go back and take a.
Yeah, well, if he
What's
does get the
remaining?
panels on and the electrical and all the
I
rest of
think
the
that's
stuff,
what.
because I think it was shorter. Well, yeah.
I know a little bit about it. The power pole that services our Orphanger shed is actually on BC Ferry's land.
Yeah.
So they have to move the pole to run a new service, to run a new power to the Orphanger shed, which then goes back for the solar panel. So
Okay.
it's not an easy little job.
Okay.
Nothing ever. Where's the MRM?
That's good for me. Anybody else got any further?
Major road network money.
It'll be coming in. It's I haven't used any of it for any of the projects. I don't think any of the projects ever put forward qualified for MRN funding, but it'll go directly into a reserve as it comes in.
Do we have to set up a statutory reserve for that? or do we
Not a
just
stat,
borrow?
no, it's just a reserve is what they had asked for.
Rob, Maureen?
Yeah, so I'm definitely supportive of the recommendation moving forward, and I sat through some finance committees, and I know sort of some of the juggling that's been having to happen, and this is my first year, first budget. I do want to make a couple of just quick sort of observations and comments moving forward. One is on, well, first off is, it's another 6.7, it was 8.1 the year before, and with the garbage tax, I mean, it's definitely more than the cost of living is going up. So there's a bit of a concern that pie is sort of growing at that pace. And, almost $300 for the average household, that will be a sting for a lot of families. So that's a concern, obviously. But I know some of the juggling, and I don't see a lot of fat in the system to make that number go down considerably. Couple of areas though. One is on the composting side, and I know at the Finance Advisory Committee we recommended that it be moved to the Environmental and Climate Change Committee to look at on-island composting. And just the whole idea of us shipping all of our compost all the way out to Pemberton, it's just crazy, right? And so whether it's on island or we encourage people to do it on their own properties, which is, I don't know why everybody doesn't do that, but anyway, I think we really need to push forward with that. And I just don't want to see that get lost, so I really want to see that get moved to that committee, so that when we do go out for new tenures, RFPs for garbage services, that's included, and that's an expectation that we're going to have of anybody bidding on any of those contracts. So that's number one. Number two is I had a good tour of Public Works, and they're running like a really lean operation, which was really good to see. And I just want to make sure that they do get that staff support, because it looks like there is a lack of support there from the staff perspective. And then I also just want to bring up, just our fire services. It's right now 8%, which is sort of average for Metro Vancouver municipalities. Most of them are being paid for, fully paid services. But I am just concerned that chunk of that pie is growing, and unless we keep adding more taxes, it's going to start taking away from other services. So I just think we need to be very careful in that area. There's SCUI equipment, the turnout gear, the fire hoses, the pickup truck. I really support having a second look at that engine 31. But all of that is on top of, the debt servicing for the 2.7, the land, the capital, and the ongoing operating costs, which I think are going to be substantially higher than we've had in the past with the old haul. So just a concern that pie, if it does start taking up other areas, we need to go out to the public and say that and find out where it is going to go from, because I just don't see us having much more taxation ability to just keep growing at the pace we are. So that's just sort of a concern that I have on that side. But as far as the rest, I think you've done a great job, and I mentioned this at the Finance Committee meeting. The public information was very, very well done. Like that, what we're handing out to the public, super, super clear. And I really commend, I know Sophie did a lot of work on that. for having that really good succinct information that people are actually going to read. And so, yeah, that's it for me.
Right, for me.
Yeah.
Just want to introduce the capital asset plan, where we're looking at the life and the cost of all our capital assets. Just, sorry, if I've missed something, I have to, just because it's germane to the budget, where are we in terms of the plan, in terms of how long we think it's going to get our capital plan together, capital replacement plan?
So you're talking about a sustainability or an asset replacement plan?
Asset management plan.
So I've just been so busy, I haven't had time to turn my attention to that. That is where I would like to focus this summer. It's not something we'll be able to put together right away, but I basically have some experience in putting together a sustainability plan, and so I will probably reach out to an external consultant as well, because we do have some funding available and I'll need some outside help to get that developed, but I plan to turn my attention to that this summer.
And in the context of the budget, because the capital, the asset plan probably done over what, 20, it's a 20-year rolling asset plan, is it? Something like that?
Well, it would be essentially a 20, I mean, you would look
Something.
at 20 to 30 years
Yes, rolling asset.
into the future in terms of what your funding levels are, what
So-
your required funding levels are, and then you would take a look at essentially what type of asset levy you need, or how long you need it for to essentially average out your reserves, because you'll have years where you're still going to have high spending and low spending, but at least you can average it out over the long term and plan for it.
So really, by the time you get there, probably towards the end of the year, which means whilst it's not in the 20, these things always are like a grenade being lobbed under the door. You don't know until you do the numbers, just in fact what your asset costs, replacement costs are going to be. So we haven't made any provision for sort of potential shortfalls in term generically in it for asset provision generically. We're waiting for the plan to come out.
So what we're doing is that 1.5% extra levy that we charge
Is what you're
is
taking
building
to that.
up our contribution to reserves. So for capital, we this year we levied, of the taxation dollars that we levied, $1.3 million was for capital. That entire 1.3 goes into our reserves, and then you're approving, essentially by approving these projects here, this capital spending, you're approving us taking money out of those reserves. So the entire amount of capital is contributed to the reserves and then brought back out of the reserves to fund capital.
No, I get that. Okay. All right. So before we can put anything solid, it'll be the end of the year at least before we're over.
At least, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Or into 2020.
Okay. No, fair comment. At least we know what we don't know.
All right. So,
And one more.
oh, sorry, Allison.
Is the new fire truck in the 2020 line for capital?
I am pretty sure I pushed it into 2020. I
So
will
we did
double
put
check.
550 in
Yeah.
2020.
Maureen, sorry, did I miss you?
That was my fault, but you can distribute it.
So the recommendation is that bylaw number 483, 2019, setting this Bowen Island Municipality, bylaw number 483, 2019. The 2019 5-year financial plan bylaw be read first, second, and third time. Second. Michael, all in favor? Thank you. That is unanimous. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rod.
Yes,
I don't
thank
think
you very
anybody
much.
has an idea of how much work that
Oh.
Yeah.
I do. If I can just say, this whole presentation this year is so different from even last year that I really appreciate it, and I think it's good to focus us on the bigger, higher level stuff than rows and rows and rows of endless questions. So thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raj. All right, so staff report 7.1, Bob Robinson. Come on down, what time is it? Not bad.
Bob, you're on staff.
I know you do.
Good evening. So this report is in because of many letters sent to mayor and council about they were asking for speed bumps on Carter Road. It was said that there was too much speeding. Sat down there a few times, got some weird looks, even by Hope. The whole road is sort of, wasn't designed for what is happening now. What people do is they come and they park on the opposite side of the road, let their kids out, walk across the road, so they're basically walking across traffic and going into the school. When I sit down there, and I know I'm gonna get lots of grief over it, but my recommendation would be that the people should use the parking lot down below to drop the kids off. It keeps them off the road, keeps them out of the way, they can run around, do whatever they want in the parking lot, and go up into the into the daycare. And in a long-term look at it, I think what should be done is the road should be widened one lane to the west. So you have 2 lanes of road, and then there's a lane that's actually parking with a sidewalk. So almost exactly the same thing as down by the ferry marshalling. That's how they should unload rather than going across the road.
So you're gonna move the road into the sort of little bit of a half
Yes.
circle?
Move the whole road over.
Into
That would be,
library lot.
yeah, that would be, there's quite a bit of road right away there. It's not really even in the library lot, but
But
that would
that's,
be,
oh, that's, okay, thank you.
that would be
Yeah.
the long-term goal of that. But as it is now, after looking at it in this, I still think that you should drive down in the parking lot and let your kids off and stay off the traffic, off the roadway.
Allison, sorry, Maureen, go
That seems like such a sensible solution.
ahead.
Why hasn't it occurred to them?
Because people don't want to do it.
People have to walk up some steps,
The steps?
And the reason that little sort of cutoff is in there, the little turnout, is because that was the end of the road before it went on down to the school and stuff.
So
It was never intended to be parking. Unfortunately, somebody put up some parking signs there, but Allison, do you remember when?
Bob and I were trying to remember when the bridge got put in and when Catesville Chapel and everything else got built, but the preschool was built first, is my recollection. But-
It was definitely built before IBS or
Yeah.
things
Yes.
that went in, yeah. I've got a little issue, an analogy is people that buy, cheap land at the end of beside an airport and then want to shut the runway down.
You didn't
That
have
was,
lanes, did you?
that was always there. I don't see why we have to compensate for a situation that was pre-existing, really. We didn't create that problem, so I don't know why we have to fix it. And they've got that parking lot down below. Now, that was the question I had, Allison, is do you have any idea how that was established?
When that
The
parking lot was
numbers
built?
for the parking. I understand that it's not the best situation in the world, but I just don't feel like we should be compensating for something that was historically not proper in the first place.
Bob's got something in his report about parking stalls, or that they have to, I don't know how many they had to provide.
I'm not sure, and then they expanded, I'm not sure if they added any more extra parking stalls when they expanded, but I think if you're worried about your kid running on the road, I'd keep them off the road. I'd park in the parking lot.
Yeah.
That's an incredible, uncanny piece of logic. So really, as I understand it, then let us assume, for example, that was a much busier road that goes straight past the school. Therefore, if you want to drop off the children, I kind of explained to her that there is a car park down there, is there not?
Huge.
And there is a road to it.
Yes.
Single lane, my friend, but.
It's a single lane road.
Bumpy, gravel,
Okay.
rutted,
Okay.
high maintenance road.
I gather then the road it leaves something to be desired.
Well, it's a driveway for the parking for that building.
Okay, and the parking also gives access to the school.
Yep.
Yeah, set of
But they have to
stairs.
walk uphill to get in.
There's a set of stairs.
Well,
I was trying to see on the picture behind Michael, but
Yes.
it's
Yeah,
not
it's
really.
actually,
yeah, no, I get it. I just wonder, we have this very difficult turning circle here, which is obviously an accident looking for a place to happen, I can see what. And I can understand, is a better approach to look at the access down there? Is there any way that could be improved or made more, and then get everybody off the road down there, park, probably is, and yes, they may have to walk up to school, but I'm sorry. Am I missing something too here in this?
No, but I think that the building should be looking after their own driveway like anybody's house or something like that. If the municipality wants to help them, throw in some money, but yeah, you can fix the road up a bit. I was gonna ask you about.
I just have a couple of questions. For one thing, our son was at the school when it was built, and all the little kids are trimming the soil with and carrying the boards, you know. And the whole building layout, the design has always been so the front door faces the road. And so that's partly why, it's just, that used to be quiet little cul-de-sac.
Exactly.
And,
exactly. Get it.
and that was obviously the front door.
Yeah.
People could cross on the level, carrying one, holding on to the other one, and the gear, right? So you're kind of shuffling across. I think I have a lot of sympathy with the Bowen Children's Center and with the parents who have to obviously try and drop off their kids. In a way, it's like Bowen Island Community School, where you want to get your children as close to the door as you can and hurry up and get in, whatever. But I wonder about why don't we want to put in, can you remind me, why the idea of a speed bump is not good there? And maybe also tell me about the bridge, because I'm just curious about the increasing traffic and what that's doing to the bridge, and would it be possible to shuffle some of the traffic down Carter Road or something? I don't know, what are the other options there, but if you start with the speed bump.
Speed bump, when I've sat there and watched, I don't really believe people really speed by there. I think it's more of a problem of you let the one little kid out,
They
and
run.
he's running around, and then you're trying to get something else, and you're nervous. And when I sat there, I didn't see any speeding. The speed limit's 20 kilometers an hour, and that's super slow as it is. And there's already 2 speed bumps there, 2 little ones.
Okay.
And there's also
That's
the
what I
single
thought.
lane, there's a single lane bridge too, so you can't really race down and then stop at the bridge. The bridge, we're looking at that, that's in the capital plan, unfortunately.
yeah.
Raj will get another gray hair next year.
This one,
So we're
One
looking
year.
at,
not just
we're
a
actually
color.
We
looking
just
at
went
the
black
bridge.
because I got an answer for Allison.
So we're looking at the bridge to replace that. It's on its last legs too.
what would be the cost of taking that lane around? I know there's a fire hydrant, there's gotta be a whole bunch of other stuff, but.
I saw Chris sort of looking at it off the table to give me an idea, but
Yeah,
I'd say it'd like be about $200,000.
Ooh. Ouch.
Yeah, I'm sort of on Gary's track that, it is what it is right there. I ride my bike down there, I can't see people flying through there. And I think one of the nice things about having that narrow bridge is it actually does a really good job calming people down in front of there. I hesitate a bit saying to the Children's Center, you can only use drop off in your parking lot, you can't do it on the road, we're gonna put up no parking signs, because that could create a whole slew of other issues where then they start complaining. I'd be much more reticent to say, listen, if you have a concern with your kids on the road there, then drop them off in the parking lot. If that's a concern of a parent, if they don't have that concern, then leave it as is right now, so.
Yeah, that's,
That puts the pressure on you.
yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
I think we're just putting Band-Aids on this thing. You know, I don't think we're gonna solve any problems, like you say, I don't think the traffic's going that fast by through there, I don't, you know, all the signs are all up there, the child signs and everything else. I know, I spent a lot of time in that parking lot, and it's not that busy, it could be busy certain times of the day, I don't know. You know.
In the morning it is.
Yeah, early in the morning, yeah.
Is it well
8:05
lit?
a.m.
Is it well lit? I'm
Um,
thinking of,
No.
dropping off in the
No.
dark, so should we be suggesting to them that they put some lights up? That would light up the street and light up the parking lot, stairs?
I guess,
Yeah, that's gonna be.
The other things, Bob, is if we
Okay, they want to go.
If we have parking signs up there, do we become complicit?
well, that's why I said we
I
should
think-
have no parking signs, and
Well, I
if they
think
park
should
there,
be
they
no
don't
parking,
get,
yeah.
but that's,
Maybe we should just take the parking signs out.
Away.
do that too.
My suggestion is, along with what other suggestions we might pass along, is that, I'm interested in the idea of moving, the road over a little bit and solving the problem in the long term. And, so far, we seem to be, as a municipality, doing, fairly well at getting funding for road adjustments that have to do with active transportation and safety and, I think maybe the Bowen Children's Center might be even better at raising funds than we are. And I think it would be good to, for council to, if needed, to say we're interested in that, and maybe we can find some collaborative projects, something, I don't know. But I just, rather than just saying use the parking lot, we could say, and here's another alternative, and, have a little array of options.
Yeah, I think was it 2 or 3 years ago, we had the same issue come to the council table, and it was referred back to the Children's Center to come up with some, I think, ideas. And it just doesn't seem to have gotten any, I don't know what happened within those 2 years, so it might just be worth having that conversation.
They were supposed to have meetings with their other partners down the road.
That's right, and then come back with with
Maybe
ideas.
they built their building and maybe it's a better time, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or we could refer it to the transportation, committee or something.
I was just gonna say, I just saw Ann in passing the other day, and she said that they have engaged an engineer to look at putting in parking on the side of their property, extending it out and having some of the works donated. So it's in their mind, and they would be doing fundraising for that to get some, I think, parallel parking or angle parking or something like that.
It would probably be parallel parking, it'd be only about 4 spots. I think they're gonna extend that,
They're looking at, she did mention it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be great to get an update or something, hearing what's happening up here at the front. Just to, if we can bring all our mutual interests into alignment better, it'll be better for everybody, rather than having this conversation here.
Maureen?
I'm just going back to what it was they asked us. So they requested improvements to Carter Road. Those improvements were speed bumps, and what else?
We know.
It may have been a crosswalk. I'd have to go back and look at the original correspondence.
Because we don't have to do anything more.
Nope.
Other than to say, no, we're not pursuing speed bumps. And we're open to further discussions to address this issue. We don't actually have to tell them, through a council resolution, use your parking.
Yeah.
That could come up in discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
Even though it may be the cleanest option.
I think that's very wise, and I don't think we should go beyond where we have to go, but should we take those signs down, those parking signs, what's the thought on that?
Well, I'd leave them if you're inviting them to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
leave it
Yeah.
at the-
This is collaborative.
And I'm wondering if Sue Ellen's suggestion of, and I don't know how other people here feel about maybe moving this or having BIMTAC look at this.
They're not traffic engineers.
No, but their transportation, right?
Well, but they're not got the skill set to understand the traffic issues and what you
Can
can
I
and
say,
can't do.
just
so.
go back to what
Yeah.
Maureen
I
said,
just
what's
want
the
Maureen-
actual ask? And the
Yeah.
actual ask
Was
was
for
for
speed
speed
bumps.
bumps.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
just.
More speed bumps,
Yeah.
because I guess there's two there
There's
already.
two still.
So maybe that's what the
Speed bumps on
recommendation
the
should be.
sidewalk,
Maybe the recommendation should be just something really simple about, we don't.
or this could be for information only.
Yeah.
No, I think we need to respond, and that perhaps it's something along the lines that, council will not be
Authorizing the
installation of speed
any
bumps.
more.
More speed bumps.
There were already two there.
But Bob, you saw no speeding while you were sitting up.
I didn't, I'm not saying that nobody speeds there, but I find it
I would
very hard.
highly doubt that people fly through there, yeah. It's-
I think Hope does once in a while, but.
No,
Exception.
How about a pedestrian overpass there? Might be cheaper than $200,000.
I wonder, rather than the kind of, yes, there is speeding, no, there isn't speeding thing, whether you could hook up your, speed measuring device, would that be worth
It's too
something?
short of distance
Ah,
to
Word.
get a hold of it.
right,
I don't know if Paulo can do his might be different.
yeah. It just might be worth it to have some actual data,
Yeah.
that everybody could look at together and, without disagreeing with each other about whether they're speeding or not.
Yeah,
or
no,
what speeding
it's
is.
not enough
yeah.
distance to pick up the.
Yeah, I do remember when the RCMP brought their report and delegation here to the previous meeting, that they did offer us, if we can help in any way.
Yeah.
So
Well,
maybe
they'd be willing to do
we
that.
could ask,
Paulo?
again, the RCMP to pass along any info they have or might collect about speeding in front of at that part of Carter Road.
We just take that bridge out.
Because it's possible they've been
Solve
down
it.
there looking too.
There's correspondence that came forward from Paulo as well as from the Bowen Children's Centre that has prompted this.
Yeah, that's right, I remember that, yeah, okay.
But I can't find it, I'm looking for it.
So could I propose a revised
Yes, please.
recommendation? So whereas council received correspondence from the Bowen Children's Centre and the Bowen Island RCMP Detachment Supervisor requesting improvements to Carter Road and referred the correspondence to Public Works for review and comment, that council do not authorize staff to proceed with the installation of additional speed bumps on Carter Road, and that council authorize staff to consult with the Bowen Children's Centre about alternatives to,
Or potential safety improvements for
about
kids.
potential safety improvements? No.
Alternatives for potential.
Yeah,
I
sort
don't know
of,
what the second part is. Hope, do you have the second part?
I had something, and it was the council, where did it go? The council directs staff to invite the Bowen Children's Center to a future council meeting to provide an update on parking, but I liked what you had better.
Well, I think that could be the second part of,
The second part of yours?
yeah, so something about no speed bumps, and then what
And
you
that
propose.
council directs staff to invite the BCC to a future council meeting to discuss potential
Or
safety
the council
improvements.
invite the BCC.
The council invite.
or update or something.
Yeah, for an update.
For,
Because it sounds like they
Progress
have their
report.
own plans on the go.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to know,
What they were.
What they're doing.
yeah,
I found the
Regarding-
children's center
yeah.
letter.
what is the children's?
Well, it's going on about the problem of near misses and everybody speeding and that the original speed bumps are ineffective. And this high-risk situation needs to be addressed, including due consideration for large and effective speed bumps. So, and that was that one, and then Paulo's letter.
maybe the council invite BCC to a future council meeting regarding potential upgrades to parking along Carter Road.
I think we want to give them that sort of a false hope
Yeah.
to discuss,
Or
discuss the
Or
their
request
concerns.
an update from BCC regarding potential changes to parking along Carter Road.
How about invite to a future meeting to fully understand the concerns with BCC?
Yeah, and Paul, the RCMP letter was basically reiterating issues and then saying, review the area by the municipality that would result in a permanent solution to slow vehicles down would provide much needed safety to children, parents, and survivors.
Because it sounds like there's not agreement about whether they're speeding or not.
Yeah.
And, you know, so the question is, what is speeding? And how slow would be slow enough? And that kind of thing are all kind of still hanging out there. So whatever data we can collect about the speed of the vehicles.
Doesn't matter what the speed
I
is.
think invite them as a delegation to understand their concerns.
Yeah.
So what do we got
So-
for a final
So
one?
the last part, that council invite BCC to a future meeting, council meeting to fully understand concerns related to safety. Concerns relating to safety along Carter
Just their
Road.
concerns.
Their concerns, just
Yeah.
as it's not.
All right, somebody want to do that? Thank you, Maureen. Second? I'll second it, and any further discussion? Okay, last question, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. Moving on to correspondence. Now, 8.1, I don't know if you read through this. So I'm going down to the Tsawwassen First Nation 10-year treaty anniversary. I've been trying to get a hold of David, I don't know why he hasn't responded to me, but he had mentioned at one point that he was interested in going, so I want to see if he's still interested. I gotta go wait for him to get back to me, so I'm sorry this is sort of got,
It's not that.
well, we'll just leave it as Councillor XXX. Anybody else interested if he isn't, if he's not, it's on April the 1st, and I think
April
it's
the third,
3rd, sorry, and from,
Wednesday.
yeah,
I have a prior
1 to 6 or
commitment.
something.
Yeah.
I can't be there.
Allison, Rob,
I have an HR.
yeah,
Sorry,
Yeah.
put it.
yeah,
If David
I'll
wants
put you in as a
to,
backup
to,
there.
yeah. Mhm.
I think David also said that he might be attending through Metro Vancouver.
Mhm.
Oh,
No,
same
I
day?
think he said he wanted to attend because he knew Bryce Williams through Metro Vancouver.
Anyway. I'm happy
Okay,
to
let's
get back
see how
there.
it is, okay,
That was
good,
my
thank you very much.
recollection.
So, I guess we can still do the recommendation with the councillor.
Well, I would do that council authorize Mayor Ander and Councillor Hawking and or Councillor Fass.
Hawking/Fast. To attend the Tsawwassen First Nation 10-year treaty anniversary celebration on April 3rd, 2019. I'll move that.
Second.
Good. Michael, and I don't think there's any further discussion on the favor. Oh, it doesn't look good?
Yeah, I might
Allison,
not,
you're
I'm
okay
not
with
sure.
that?
It has to be an or, because I think they've only asked for two people.
Okay.
Oh, no, yeah, I sort of had a slash in there.
Yeah.
You can put it.
So Hawking
I'll see.
or
Yeah,
Fast.
I've got
Okay,
something
thank
that
you.
doesn't have a time on
Sure it's
Okay.
not food. Okay, Allison, you okay with that?
Yeah.
She's 100%, thank you. Reports of committees, so we don't have any of that, so the new business. So myself, an update on the Mayor Standing Committee. Now that we had the closed meeting, I gave you an update on the Mayor Standing Committee. I'll just do it for the audience here, but so we had a very, very good discussion of the Community Lands Committee with the proponents, the Health Center, Birch, Snug Cove House, and who the other guys over there? Bowen Court, yeah. We had really, really productive discussions with all these different factors. And we are all on the same place. We all want the same thing to happen. We had a great discussion about a community health, a health community all around Snug Cove House and that sort of thing. They're talking about maybe some expansion, maybe we can help them out there. But the whole drive was we just have a whole sort of an aging community thing in there, different levels and all that stuff. So that was really productive, and it was good to get all the people together because they really hadn't been talking. Talks went really well with the health center people. Had a great discussion with them. Very worthwhile, and they're very committed to this, and we're committed also to making this happen for them. But we also told them that you know, we have to consider where it is and the public feedback that, you know, that the land's very expensive where they want to go. So it's just a discussion. I think we've got to have a resolution that'll fit into everybody's idea. Let's hope so. And the same thing with Birch. I think we came to maybe a bit of a resolution there. So it's got a few little ways to go in the process, but we're hoping to tie it up before the end of April so they can get on with what they have to do as far as fundraising and everything. So that's sort of where that was. And Maureen, for the request to participate, yeah.
Okay, you've got a report in your agenda package related to this item. It's a request to participate in the BC Rural Islands Economic Summit, which will be held on Salt Spring Island on the 7th and 8th of November of this year. So the request surfaced through both the Islands Trust via Sue Ellen and our economic development liaison with the provincial government, Wendy Cove. And what this is a 2-day summit that's intended to bring together representatives of all of the island communities and to allow opportunities for networking and for learning from those different islands. In particular, what I think is interesting about this is that Salt Spring in particular has been able to secure quite a lot of rural and remote funding through the Rural Dividend Fund, through ICE-T, which is the Island Coastal Economic Trust, and they also have Community Futures. So they have access as a rural island to a lot of support that we presently, Bowen Island, doesn't have access to. So the person who's spearheading this, Francine Carlin, was very keen to meet with us and to talk a bit about, you know, how they had gone about certain things. So the topics for the summit are rural island economic diversification, protecting and sustaining, optimizing local and inter-island transportation, mobilizing local capital for rural island economic revitalization, and green workforce attraction. So the ask to us is to have one person who's prepared to serve on the working group, the planning group, and also to contribute $1,500 to the estimated $50,000 of their total budget. And
Very worthwhile.
yeah, all of the correspondence from Francine is in my report, as are a couple of letters of support, 3 letters of support, as well as a 1-pager just describing what they've got up and running. Sound good?
Super. Yeah.
Is that?
Sure sounds good to me.
Yeah, okay, great. So, recommendation that council support the participation of the Bowen Island Community Economic Development Committee in the BC Rural Islands Economic Summit, Salt Spring Island, November 7th to 8th, 2019, initiated by the Salt Spring Island Community Economic Development Commission. That council contribute $1,500 to help support the BC Rural Islands Economic Summit, and that council direct the Bowen Island Community Economic Development Committee to select a committee member to serve on the summit working group. So moved.
Okay, just before, one question. So what are we committing to here? Are we gonna send, how many people?
We're not committing to sending anybody at
Okay.
this point. What we're doing is we're committing to have a person serve on their working group to
Okay.
get it organized.
Ah, okay.
And one of the things you'll notice in their budget, one of the things that they want to do is provide bursaries so that people can attend.
Well, that's an interesting.
So
And
I couldn't,
1,500.
I couldn't
Yeah.
figure out from their budget, are they gonna charge for attending this?
It's not clear to me,
Okay.
and it may be that they are holding off until they see how much funding they can raise through other sources. They've got an application into, where is it into, mentioned in Francine's
Yeah.
correspondence.
Yeah. No, I saw that they had a number, but it wasn't clear whether they were.
Yeah, I don't think they know.
And is there gonna be travel costs for this person, or is it all gonna be done by phone?
For the working group, my assumption is that it's all going to be done by phone. There was no mention of travel costs.
Okay. And Raj, which budget pot are we taking this out of?
I can look into that, and probably one of our strategic initiatives.
Yeah,
It
we've got
makes
rural
sense for
funding
it to
on
come
that.
out of council strategic initiatives.
Yeah.
And in my cover memo, cover report, I mentioned that it does relate to the strategic priority of gaining rural
Rural
status.
Yes,
And that
absolutely.
really is why it caught
Yeah,
my
that's
attention.
why we have to do
Mhm.
it.
That's why I forwarded, yeah.
Very worthwhile. Okay, any other discussion? Last question, all in favor? Thank you, unanimous.
So the Community Economic Development Committee is going to be ecstatic about this because
Good.
they have been looking for some specific direction from council as to what are priorities for us in the coming years. So this gives them something to sink their teeth into. It's great. Thank you.
10.3, I guess we'll have to leave that. Yeah. Let's see David around here. The Island Trust, Fast and Kale update. Up to you.
No, up to you. Okay.
Yeah.
I know what's gonna happen here, but I'll be happy to report that Bowen Island trustees, I guess we could call us, were
Yeah.
at Gabriel Island last week at Trust Council, where we passed the budget, and for the Trust Council with one opposed. And I think you'll see in items 12.6 A, B, C, and D are different things that the Islands Trust is doing. The first one is a sea level rise workshop here on Bowen Island in council chambers, I think, right? On March 30th, this Saturday. So if anybody's interested in that, helping this has been going around to various islands who expressed an interest to help islands cope with sea level rise. And anyway, the other things are there. You can see on D, we passed a reconciliation declaration. The Islands Trust has got like 30 First Nations within the Islands Trust area, and there's many good reasons to have a declaration like this and to be working with First Nations. So if it's of use to anybody, refer it on, or we can look at it, whatever. And then, 10.2, you can see there's some longer term projects in the go. That's what we just discussed with Maureen here, the rural funding and trying to help all the islands stay rural and also have healthy small communities. And I wanted to say, what was the other bit? Oh yes, in terms of the budget, I thought Bowen Island, there's been some funny language that I've been hearing. I think people are a bit confused about. I've been asked by my own father, Bowen, why does Bowen pay more than the other islands? So I just wanted to clarify that there are 8 other local trust areas that paid more than Bowen last year, and 5 paid less. Bolinas from Chelsea, which has 1 family living on it, Liskiti, Saturna, South Pender, and Thetis Island, which is the little one. So these are the smaller islands that pay less than Bowen Island. And I just think there's probably some other, anyway, I'm going to stop there.
Fair comment. Michael? Yes, Councillor Foss is absolutely right. We did attend our recent trustees meeting on Gabriola, and actually I found it in some ways extremely informative. And just for the record, I was the only trustee to vote against the Islands Trust budget. And just for the record and the microphone, I'd like to repeat that I was the only trustee to vote against the Islands Trust budget. However, if I was alone in that, I probably wasn't far from alone in expressing some concerns which I think we'll have to get to grips with in the areas of trust governance and transparencies. And those are subjects which I think we will address in greater detail at the next trust meeting. And I am going to be reporting back at this opportunity to council. The obvious answers are Saturna, with a population of 6,000 people, has 2 representatives. Thetis, with a population, shall we say, of around 500, has 2 representatives. So, not to belabor the point, but obviously the issue of governance is going to be raised, and probably all would agree that it's overdue. The second of 3 points I want to raise is one of the requisition, and owing to this afternoon's meeting we had, I'm going to require some clarification on releasing information, properly releasing information from that meeting.
And Hope, I think you have a proposed recommendation. Maybe we could introduce them.
Saturn has 6,000 people?
No, Salt Spring.
Salt Spring,
Yeah.
okay.
Salt Spring.
Salt Spring has 10,000.
Salt
Spring has 10,000.
Yeah. Regardless of whether you're 500
Yeah.
or whether you're
I get it.
6,000, you have 2 representatives.
That's because
So
it's
turn us at
trust.
350.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
I'll send you the report that was done on that
Oh,
exactly.
it's a population growth.
The obvious, in today's world, it may have been great in 20 years ago. In today's world, it was causing concern for other trustees, this whole issue. So I said, I may have been alone on the budget, but I sure wasn't alone on this one. Sorry, Hope, am I interrupting you, or did you want to take it?
Nope, I'll just read the motion if you like.
Sure, if you're ready.
That council direct staff provide a report detailing the municipality's rights and legal obligations with respect to the Islands Trust requisition.
We just give that one visit.
That council direct staff to provide a report detailing the municipality's rights and obligations with respect to the Islands Trust requisition.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
You
fine.
move
Yeah.
Moved, second.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll ask a question, all in favor?
So once that information is available, I will be able to refer back on the subject of the requisition, which probably doesn't need setting the meeting this afternoon on one side, any great further comments. This is one of these issues which is now sort of firmly embedded in, I think, in Bowen's, a lot of Bowen thinking. And, you know, some stories just won't go away. And I was somewhat buoyed by the remark that I received from one of our citizens, where they said at the bottom of the letter, never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever did. So those who are sitting back thinking that the requisition and the laws around it may never change should maybe reflect on that. Lastly, I have a question, in fact, for council and for future agendas which I intend to bring forward. And the question is this, that given this December marks 20 years as a municipal council, is this elected body prepared to accept total responsibility for the mandate to preserve and protect for Bowen Islands? And that is the question that I intend to bring forward. And I find no need to repeat it. And that's probably it for tonight's Kale's Tales on the Trail of Island Trust.
Jacqueline, yeah, it's a process. It's going to be.
Certainly is.
I agree. Process. That's a good start. Councillor Nicholson. See you, Raj. Thank you.
This is a report on the Metro Vancouver Regional Parks Committee. We met on the 13th of March, and the open meeting, the highlights of the open meeting were we introduced the brand book to the to the newer members of our committee. If you haven't seen this in the past, I'll bring in a copy to share with Sophie. It's just the guidelines for all of the branding that's done within the park system. And then the second highlight of the open meeting was we had a lot of information about bears, Minicata Park, and the bear issue in Minicata Park. And also in
Have you ever wanted to know
Belcarra.
about bears?
Huh?
What have you ever wanted to know about bears?
More than I ever wanted to know about bears. Including the news that Belcarra is introducing a $10,000 fine for inappropriate interaction with bears.
I don't wanna know.
That's a close.
Only something.
Oh, God, I wasn't even on that wavelength, but
Okay, and the rest of the meeting was closed. Things will sort of come out in the next while. Yeah, that's.
You're meeting with them when, here?
We're not. There's going to be a staff
Yes, yeah,
meeting.
we're meeting with, Daniel and I are meeting with, Jeff Fitzpatrick of Vancouver, I think next week.
Yeah, that's
You know
gonna
what,
be.
it's all coming.
No.
Get
Oh,
your-
sorry.
Raw. Okay, thank you, Maureen.
You're welcome.
And Allison?
Two things. One,
Yep.
we had a report at the last meeting on, Mayor's Council on the progress on the investment plan, and everything is on track and moving forward. And if you want to read it, it's on the website under the public agenda, under translate. And the really good news was the federal budget on the 19th, where the province, or the feds, have doubled the gas tax fund for 1 year. So I'm assuming that means we'll get double the little
Yeah,
bit
I
we
would think
get.
so, yeah.
But anyhow, it's a lot of money for TransLink, and we're gonna keep things on track.
So this is just, sorry, this is just for 1
They've
year?
doubled it for 1 year,
Yeah,
yeah.
just a little gift before the election.
But all before, because it's coming up to the
Yeah.
election.
They have, don't want to give person a month, we'll take it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
That's it.
Yes, it's held the attention of the audience.
I missed the tour of all the operations facilities because of the Squamish meeting.
Oh, yeah.
It was an eye-opener for those that did go, apparently, realized just how much gets done once the line closes down, done before it opens up again.
Yeah, that would be
Short
interesting.
time frame they have to do it.
Yeah. I missed that, so.
Yeah, this is 10.7, the bit I wanted to add is about the climate emergency. I just thank you, Mayor Ender, for representing us with the children, the students marching for
Awesome.
climate action. And so this was, Bowen students joined global climate change protests, and I wondered if we wanted to respond, if council chose to respond to that demonstration of democracy and by our young people, by perhaps considering climate emergency declaration of some kind of our own. I should note, Islands Trust also voted for a climate emergency declaration, and that was supported unanimously, I believe. Anyway, I wondered, rather than, think about the big picture and what it might mean tonight, if we could just refer it to our Environment and Climate Action Committee. So I'm wondering, here's my
I think
draft
that'd be a
motion.
great idea and a great salute to what they're doing.
Yeah, anyway, and here's my draft motion, we can discuss it. That council refer the concept of declaring a climate emergency and recommended actions to the Environment and, what is ECAC? Environment?
Climate Action Advisory Committee.
Yeah, okay, so there is only one E, that's my problem. Okay, thank you. And that's my motion.
On the grounds that they're the perfect people to deal with it, I'm happy to second it.
Okay, great.
Any further discussion on that? I think it's a great idea. I think it's, that was a great group of kids, and they're really devoted to this, and they are the future, and anything we can do to sort of.
how many kids were there, Gary?
There had to be
It looked like it was a lot.
150. It seemed like
Yeah,
a
it looked
lot,
like a
yeah.
lot.
Can I add a little bit to the end of the
Friendly
motion?
amendment?
Just to say, and to let the schools involved know
Yeah.
that we were paying attention.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Just to let the schools know about this motion.
Perfect, good thinking. Any further discussion? All in favor? Michael? you
Yeah, sorry,
opposed?
no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, that's unanimous. And on that note, we're going to go, hey,
What was this afternoon's meeting?
question period.
I'm usually gonna ask that.
We
Sorry.
had a closed session with our solicitor this afternoon.
And what's the Snug Cove camera, or the camera at Snug Cove dock?
Bob's not here, somebody mentioned that.
I asked about that, and as I understand it, it's to help
Monitor.
monitor the dock for our how do you say that?
Wharfing.
Wharfingers.
So it's not like a public thing where people can watch the video.
No. Netflix on the BC ferries, no. This
We
is
can
just
sit
so
up
they
here
can
and watch
see,
them all
just so they can see
Yeah.
when new boats come in and that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
save them going down there every half hour, whatever. Yeah.
But if you wanna watch the ferry, they've got a new, thing down there. See where
I know,
it's
they
at.
always have these little cars, little chairs parked in front of
Yeah, I
it.
know, that's your excuse.
of. Anyway, I'm going to adjourn, anybody second? Oh, good, thank you. We are
Thank you.
Did you expect a detailed Michael position?